What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dean, aka the Blue Crusader, and welcome back to another Minecraft mod showcase. You guys have been asking me for some more magic mods, so in today's video I decided to showcase one of my favorite Minecraft mods of all time, which is yet another magic mod, and that is the mod called ProjectE. So ProjectE is basically a Minecraft magic mod which centers around the whole idea of alchemy and transmutation. So if you're a fan of the anime show Full Metal Alchemist, this mod will also appeal to you even more. So let's begin. This is a really cool mod where we can use magic and alchemy to transmute items into other items and utilize an array of different magical blocks and ingredients to create awesome new things. So this mod showcase is going to be quite long, so as usual everything will be timestamped in the description and also in the video bar below, so you can jump to the areas of the video which interest you the most. I'll go through all the blocks, items, crafting, recipes for most of the important things, and also the armors, tools and weapons. So let's get into this mod, because this is unlike any other Minecraft mod that you've seen before, because trust me, this one is really fun. So the first item, which is the most important to begin the mod we're going to be covering, is the Philosopher Stone. So I'm going to show you the recipe for the Philosopher Stone first of all, and this is a simple item that we only need to create one of. So this is the recipe. We're going to need a collection of glowstone surrounded by redstone and a diamond, and this creates the Philosopher's Stone. So as you can see, you can change the modes of it if you press the C key, and basically the Philosopher's Stone allows you to transmute dirt into sand and sand backwards into grass. The stone can also become cobblestone, and likewise vice versa. So we can charge it by pressing V, just like in most items in the ProjectE mod. We press V to charge it, and it creates this weird magical sound, which is actually really cool. And you can also hold Shift and V to discharge the item. Now I don't know why you'd want to discharge it, but that's the shortcut to do so. So if we press C, it goes into the Philosopher's Stone interface here, okay? And we can actually craft with the Philosopher's Stone in this item interface, so it basically functions kind of like a crafting bench as well. Now, as you can see, we can see this has a target area radius here, so it's currently in cube mode, and if we right click, we'll directly change all of this gravel into sand, and we can just consistently keep doing that. Now, this is changed into sandstone, so it's changed the gravel into sandstone, and we can just right click, and we can right click again to change it back into the material it previously was. So we can go around here and we can change everything to sandstone if we want to, providing we've selected a gravel block. And then if we do on grass, it'll turn grass into sand and sand back into grass. So obviously, depending on the material that we've highlighted and selected with the Philosopher's Stone, it'll change that into a different material. So if we use normal stone, we can transmute normal stone into cobblestone, and basically it works like this to change materials into others. This is also really cool to craft it, because then we can mass turn something into something else without having to gather and farm it for hours. So this is a really nice shortcut in this mod. A lot of the features in ProjectE will work as a shortcut to make things a little bit easier in game. The next item which is important in the ProjectE mod is the Transmutation Table. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to craft that right now. And the reason why I'm showcasing this second is because the Transmutation Table actually uses the Philosopher's Stone in its recipe. It uses a mix between the Philosopher's Stone along with normal stone blocks and also obsidian to craft the Transmutation Table. So then we can go ahead and place this thing down, and when we right click on it, it gives us this custom interface. Now, one thing that's going to be consistent throughout the ProjectE mod is something called EMC. EMC is basically an energy value which the mod uses in order to transmute items or duplicate items, so we're going to go over this a little bit more in a few moments or later in the video. The Transmutation Tablet or Table is basically a workstation where you can create all your transmutations in the mod. So this is a real core component and one of the complex blocks in the mod that you're going to want to create. Now, let me just give you a quick rundown on how things work. So this fire slot here basically burns an item, and it burns the item into an EMC value. So let's just throw this obsidian in here, and obsidian per item has an EMC of 64, whereas a full stack has an EMC of 3800. So let's just put this in this burn slot here, and when we do that, it gives us 3800 EMC for the full stack of 60. So Now we have EMC stored inside the transmutation table, and this basically serves as credit which we can then use to duplicate something or transmute something. So this is where things get interesting. This mod can be quite complex, but it's very simple to learn, so just hear me out. Now you use the EMC to then create items from the output slots, and as you obviously burn items in here for EMC, the transmutation table will remember that and basically store that in the future in its history bank, so you can then create that same item again, which means that the table must gain knowledge from you burning the items first before you can then create them the second time in the future. So you're basically building up a knowledge base here, just like how your body builds up a knowledge base of certain viruses when it creates antibodies for them. It kind of serves as the same purpose in this mod. This history bank of items is basically bound to the player, so it doesn't matter how many of these transmutation tables you create, the same recipes and stored ones will be stored in there too, because it's actually memorized to the player, not the block. So as you can see, when we go in the second one we created, we can still see that obsidian in here because it's player bound. So now we could just go ahead and we could click on this obsidian, and there we go, we've just created obsidian. And as we do this, the EMC value on the left actually goes down. So if we shift click this stack to create a whole stack, we've just burnt the stack of obsidian to create 3800 EMC, and then we've created another stack of the same number of obsidian, and we've used up all the EMC. So like I said before, you're basically using this as credit to create new items. So I could also do this with glowstone, and then now the memory bank of the transmutation table has memorized glowstone, and I could shift click glowstone and use all the EMC I had to create glowstone instead of obsidian. So this is how you use the transmutation table, and it's actually really cool. Now this makes things interesting because there's a secret item in the game called the Tome of Knowledge, and this unlocks all of the transmutation knowledge in the game when you actually learn it. So as you can see, this item doesn't actually have a crafting recipe like the others, so I'm not really sure what the standard way of obtaining this item is. It might only be a creative mode item, but as you can see, if we right click on this, it doesn't really do anything at the current moment, but what it's supposed to be is it's supposed to unlock all recipes. Now I think this is particularly experimental. I don't think it's been fully included into the mod or finished, but this is a pretty cool feature. Now you can see when I used it, it actually wiped my transmutation recipes outside of this block, so if anything, it probably doesn't really help right now, but this is an interesting item to note. The next block we're going to be talking about is the energy collector. So I'm going to show you first of all how to create the Mark 1 energy collector, and then I'm going to kind of go through and talk about what it actually does. So to create the first Mark of energy collector, we basically use glowstone in this recipe right here, along with some diamond and a furnace, and we'll create the Mark 1 energy collector. This basically is a block which generates EMC from the sun. So this works to basically create EMC without actually having to use items as an input. So I'm going to explain more on what this does later, but this is a really crucial part of this mod. So we have energy collectors over here, and we have 3 different tiers. We have Mark 1, Mark 2 and Mark 3, and each of them have a higher maximum generation rate per second the higher you go up in tiers, but each of them are crafted in different ways. So Mark 2 requires glowstone, a Mark 1 block, and also dark matter, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, which is one of the more rare items in the mod. And Mark 3 requires red matter, the Mark 2, and more glowstone. So these are pretty complex to craft, but basically these serve to generate EMC, and we're going to use that on something called a condenser, which I'm going to cover momentarily too. Then we also have the antimatter relay, okay? So this basically outputs EMC and it stores EMC. So as you can see, the collector generates it and the antimatter relay outputs it. So you need a combination of relays and collectors when creating an EMC generation device, which is basically called a condenser, and you create a generation device around the condenser called a power flower, and I'm going to show you how to do that a little bit later in the video. But that's where things get fun in the ProjectE mod, but a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to try and explain it the best I can. So let's go over the energy condenser first, because this is the more important part first that we have to explain before we move on to the more complex side of things. So the recipe for the condenser is as follows. We need to put the alchemical chest in the middle, surrounded by 4 diamonds on the sides and on the top, and in the 4 corners we need squares of obsidian. Now as you can see, I've now made an energy condenser, but you may be wondering, how do we actually get the alchemical chest? Well, the alchemical chest is a pretty complex block to actually obtain legit. So I'll just show you the recipe for the alchemical chest, which will make more sense a little bit later in the video as you watch more coverage on the mod. So this is the alchemical chest, as you can see, And the recipe requires a normal chest along with some iron ingots, some polished granite, andesite, or different types of stone. You can just use normal smooth stone, with a diamond and special covalence dust, which you need to craft out of simple things like redstone and iron. I'd really recommend using just enough items so you can view all of the recipes of the items in the mod to make things a little bit easier for you. So that's how to make an alchemical chest and then turn it into an energy condenser. So what does the condenser do in the ProjectE mod? Well, basically what this does is you give the condenser an item input in this top little target logo input slot here, and this is the item that you create in here. This is a device which replicates things when you give it EMC, and we use the collectors and relays around it to pull more EMC and generate more EMC and give it to the condenser to help it to duplicate. So I'm going to show you how to build a basic power flower in the mod, the exact way that I used to build it back when I used the original mod, Equivilant Exchange 2, which this mod is basically a recreation of. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to use the Mark III here, which is obviously the best ones, and we're going to put these all around. So we need collectors and relays Mark III. And we also need a set of glowstone blocks, which we're going to put on top too. Glowstone basically means that you don't need the sunlight to generate EMC energy, because glowstone basically functions the same as it being daytime. Because in a way, the collectors kind of work like solar panels in this mod, which makes things interesting. So as you can see, what you need to do first of all is you need some space below so you can actually access the interface of the block. That's usually why I actually put the condenser inside a pit, so you can actually make some stairs down to access it, so you can actually open up the chest interface from below. Then what you want to do is you want to surround this whole thing in relays, okay? So you'll surround this whole machine in relays over here, and that's on the sides and on the top. And after that, what you would do is you would cover these in collectors. So we'd go around the side in collectors, like so, shift right clicking, and as well as this, we'd go on top of the black blocks with collectors as well. And basically cover this until you have all of the black blocks covered with collectors. And then after that, we're going to do the exact same and go around with glowstone. So we're going to cover the collectors with glowstone, just like we did to the relays with the collectors, and we're going to kind of create this flower shape. So we're kind of blossoming this thing into a flower, and this is why we call this machine a power flower, because it generates an insane amount of power, or EMC in the mod, and it basically duplicates items extremely quickly. This is why you want to make the Mark III machine, because it just makes everything insanely fast in the ProjectE mod. So now we have this huge power generation titan in the ProjectE mod, and we can go under and go on the condenser, and you can see now if we put an item in the top slot, it will duplicate this item extremely fast. This is because, as you can see, we have tons of relays on the side, and we also have energy collectors basically working overtime here, so it's just giving the condenser tons of EMC. So this is the basics, basically. And this machine is very hungry for EMC, because in the mod, it works the same as the Transmutation Tablet, which I showed you a little bit later. Basically, to duplicate an item, you need EMC to duplicate it. Now, the normal condenser without the relays and collectors, which we've just built onto it, requires items just to be put in here. So you would put an item you want to duplicate in this top slot, and then you'd throw all the items you want to burn to create that item in the top slot below it. So it will use all these items below for energy, and then it will duplicate the items in the top slot. So all of these items would go in here, and then if you put a diamond in here, for an example, it would burn all of the obsidian and then start creating diamonds with all the EMC from the obsidian which is gathered. Now, because we have the collectors and relays, we don't need to generate EMC from burning items. So once it uses this obsidian, it will just collect the naturally generated EMC like here, and it'll store it in the bar, and then it'll create diamonds for us anyway. So that's the basics of the condenser. I've explained that the best I can. It's actually quite complicated, but it's also pretty simple when you get the hang of it. The next features in the mod are alchemical fuels. So let's just create ourselves a furnace just to showcase this feature. So we can just throw in some basic iron ore in here, and along with coal in Minecraft and charcoal being the most basic of normal fuels in the vanilla game, ProjectE adds a series of 3 different new types of alchemical fuels. So they're as follows, and you can see from the EMC value they go from best to worst. So we have alchemical coal, which is the most basic, and we create this using the Philosopher stone, which I showed you how to create earlier, along with a set of coal pieces, and we create the alchemical coal. And then we can also create Mobius fuel, and we can use alchemical coal with the Philosopher stone to create this. And it's very similar to create the very best one, which is Eternalist fuel, and we use the Mobius fuel along with the Philosopher stone too. So it's basically the exact same crafting recipe, but just a tier above for the items we use in the recipe. And basically it goes from best to worst: alchemical coal, Mobius fuel, and Eternalist fuel. Now, alchemical coal has 512 EMC, it has 6400 ticks for its burning time in the furnace, and it can smelt 32 items. Then the Mobius fuel has 2048 EMC, 25,600 burning tick time in a furnace, and it can smelt 128 items per item. Then the Eternalist fuel, being the best, has 8,192 EMC, and it has 102,400 burn time in ticks in a furnace, and it can smelt up to 512 items. So those are pretty complex stats and information that you may not be interested in, but this is just a lowdown on how good this fuel really is. It's a little bit more complicated to make than the standard find coal in Minecraft, but you're really going to get a lot out of these items in terms of smelting. So earlier we used the alchemical chest to make a condenser. Now, why do we need the alchemical chest? Well, basically it just functions as an alchemist's chest that gives us more stacks of items to be stored in a chest. So if I show you the normal chest right next to it, you can see the comparison. So the normal chest here has 3 rows, whereas the alchemical chest has many more rows. You can see it literally has 8 different rows here, and it can store up to 104 stacks of items in the alchemical chest. Whereas the double normal chest can store up to 72 stacks, and that's actually a double chest, whereas the single alchemical chest stores up to 104 stacks. So it's a really awesome chest that can store a lot in it. Now, a few of the items in the mod actually work in a special way in correspondence to the alchemical chest. So the first item is the black hole band, and this sucks in nearby item drops and dumps them into adjacent inventories. So for an example, if we drop this chest over here, we can right click on it and it'll put it inside our inventory, okay? It basically serves as a gravity device. Let's say we could drop it behind here. Let's say we drop all this obsidian behind here. It's going to basically gravitate towards us until we turn off the ring. So let's drop the obsidian behind the chest and then turn on the black hole band. And you can see over here, it basically makes the obsidian fly to us. So this is a really nice item. And this also works with the alchemical chest too. You can suck items into the chest with it. So I'm just going to throw some random items in here because we just have tons of materials here. And we could use something called the Gem of Eternal Density. And if I right click on that, you can see it says advanced hardware. So shift right clicking on the chest will basically convert certain materials. So it says I've got iron ingots here. And we could press G to change the target mode too. And it says set target to gold ingot. So then I could right click on this chest and it'll create gold. And then diamond. And basically we can change the target of the item and compress materials into a chest into materials of a higher EMC value. You can also use the repair talisman to also repair things inside the chest. Now this doesn't work if you don't have broken items, but if you have broken armor in the chest, this will basically fix it. So earlier I showed you the alchemical chest and how much it could actually store inside of it. Well, the alchemical chest can be used for another recipe for a set of really nice items in the mod, which gives you some great storage too. This is none other than the alchemical bags, which come in multiple different colours based on the colour of wool that you use in the crafting recipe. So I'll show you the basic crafting recipe for the normal white wool bag, and we'd use white wool with the alchemical chest in the middle and this high covalence dust at the top, and this creates an alchemical bag. Now this basically is a huge inventory the size of the alchemical chest, but completely portable. And the great thing about this is we could put an item in here and then we could access one of our other bags, and as you can see, any bag of the same colour we can see the same items in, which is really nice. But a bag of a different colour, we can't actually see the inventory, so it could be completely different to the white one. So we could just put some items in each of them. For an example, in the purple one I could put the white bag, and then I could open that, and you could see I could put multiple bags inside multiple inventories. So this is a really nice thing for storing items on the go and carrying a ton of materials without having to go back to your base every 5 minutes. So earlier I created a normal furnace, but there's 2 new types of furnaces in the ProjectE mod which make smelting things so much quicker. You can see the first one is the dark matter furnace and then also the red matter furnace. So just to give you an idea of how fast things smelt, let's just make a completely new furnace over here, completely fresh, and we're going to put in the Eternalist fuel and some random iron ore, and you can see this takes moderately long to smelt things. If you want to smelt a whole stack, it would take quite a long time in a vanilla furnace, right? Wow, if we use a dark matter furnace, look how much quicker this is to smelt. It basically doubles or triples the smelt speed, meaning you can smelt a stack pretty quickly, okay? And this is the dark matter furnace. The red matter furnace, we can do the same, and we can use gold ore, and it literally smelts multiple ores per second. It's so quick, and we've already nearly smelted a whole stack. Now the reason why this is great is not only does it smelt things lightning fast and at super fast speeds, it smelts multiple ores per second at once. So not only does it smelt multiple items per second, but each smelt smelts multiple ores and bars. So this is a really nice furnace which you can work towards the end game of the mod. Now this is actually a really hard furnace to get, both of them, because the red matter furnace and the dark matter furnace are pretty hard to craft. First of all, we need a normal furnace surrounded by 8 of these dark matter blocks, where each dark matter block takes 4 dark matters. And for each dark matter, we need all of this eternalist fuel and a full block of diamond. So the amount of EMC and gameplay time you need to create one of these is absolutely crazy. And then we also need to upgrade that with red matter blocks around the dark matter furnace to create the red matter furnace. So it's really hard to get these furnaces, and it takes a very long time to actually obtain them, but once you reach end game, you're going to smelt things really fast. Now obviously you use the dark matter and red matter blocks to create these, so I'm just going to quickly show you what they look like. This is the normal dark matter block, and this is the normal red matter block. They basically look the same but without the furnace overlay on the front. These are actually really cool to build with. You can make like a full black room or a full red room and then put tons of tech and machinery in, and these are kind of just blocks basically to flex and show off when you've reached end game and you have tons of these blocks. It just shows you that you're rich, you've put a lot of time into the world, and you basically have everything. This is just like in vanilla when you create a faction base with full diamonds. Creating a base with full red matter is basically showing off 10 times more because it takes a long time to get even one of these. So let's move on to dark matter as basically a whole. So let's look at the dark matter series of things before we look into the red matter side of things. So first of all, this is dark matter. This is the most basic form of matter before you reach red matter, but it's still really rare. So as you can see, to create one of these, we need all of the eternalist fuel, which I showed you earlier, plus a diamond block, which is obviously 9 diamonds each block. And we need multiple of these to create different types of items and tools. Now dark matter has a few different things. We have the dark matter block and the furnace, we have the pedestal which we can put items on, and we have some really interesting tools over here. So we have the sword, we have the axe, we have the pickaxe, we have the spade, and obviously the hoe, and we have the shears and hammer. So I'm going to show you some of these tools, and we need to press V on them to charge them, just like with the Philosopher's Stone at the beginning of the video. Now the dark matter sword does quite a lot of damage. You can see it does 13 attack damage and a 2 extra bonus attack damage and 1.6 attack speed. So this is a pretty powerful sword, which is a lot more powerful than diamond. Then the dark matter pickaxe does 8 damage, so it already does more damage than diamond just as a pickaxe. And you can see the insane EMC value of these items in the tooltip too. There's the dark matter axe, the shovel, the hoe, and the shears, as well as the hammer, which is actually better than the sword. So it's basically a better weapon, but it's a little bit slower in its swing time. So as you can see, to swing it, it's a little bit slower to actually recover from. Now, I'm not just going to show you the dark matter tools, I'm also going to show you the dark matter armor. The dark matter armor is obviously really rare to get, and apart from red matter, it is the best armor in the game. And this is what the armor looks like. It actually looks pretty insane and it looks really nice. Now, for some reason in Project E, the sword is held in a really weird way. Hopefully they'll fix that soon because it doesn't look very visually appealing. But I really like the dark matter armor and it really suits my skin. Then we have the red matter side of things. Red matter is created with 3 dark matter and eternalist fuel on both rows. This is very hard to create and requires a lot of EMC to create, but it's a really worthwhile material. Now as you can see, we basically have the same sets of tools, but the red matter sword does 17 damage and the hammer does 15. So the hammer for red matter is actually worse than the sword, whereas the hammer was better than the sword for dark matter. But You can see there's different modes on the tools too. Now I haven't shown you these on the last set of tools, but I will try and show you these on the red matter tools. And you can see they have some really nice stats for all of these weapons. Now, one thing that's missing though, or two things that are missing, which were in the old Equivilant Exchange mod, is there was a different sword, which was kind of like a katana, and that was called the Red Matter Katar. And there was also the Red Matter Morningstar, which was a multi-tool, which was basically all these tools in one. Now, we do actually have the Red Matter Morningstar in this mod, but it's not called Red Matter Morningstar, it's called the Red Morningstar. And basically you use all these tools and craft them together, and it creates this mega tool. And there's also the Katar. This is called a red Katar, but it's basically red matter. So as you can see, let's charge all these tools first. So if we go on the red matter sword, as you can see, it says slay hostile. Now to change mode on items in the mod, you would press G. So as you can see, now it says slay all mode. So I'm just going to quickly spawn some mobs just to show you this in a controlled area so we don't clutter up our zone. Just going to spawn some random sheep. So as you can see, now we have slay all mode. So as you can see, slay hostile mode is just normal. It just slays normal animals. And then we can go on slay all mode. Now, I'm not sure how this specifically works, but it's supposed to be a different mode. So I would guess that it would be an area of effect. And the pickaxe, I can't show you because I'm in creative mode. I guess I'll switch to survival to show you. Basically, the pickaxe works in different ways. So if we press G, we can go into 3 wide shot mode, which basically mines 3 horizontal ores at once. Or long shot mode, which mines a row of ores in a 1x1 long line. And then the standard mode just mines 1 ore at once. And the tall shot mode mines a tower of 3. So there's basically modes for most of these tools. For an example, the Morningstar, if you right click, it destroys tons of blocks at once. And this works basically the same. Now, obviously you can do the modes and mine certain number each time. Oh, we've got some silverfish. That's a pretty rare occurrence in Minecraft. Or you can just right click and just basically obliterate stuff. This is kind of overpowered in PvP, and it's also kind of broken on servers because you can just mine tons of the world. I remember this being really broken on the Tekkit mod pack, but this is a really cool tool. And we also have the Katar, which is basically just like the sword. It has the exact same modes. But as you can see, the Katar does 24 damage and the sword does 17, so it's basically like an upgraded sword. And then also, as you can see, this is what the red matter armor looks like. It basically looks exactly the same, it's just been tinted red. Personally, I do like this more. It looks way better than diamond, and obviously the amount of effort and time taken into crafting this is a real big show off. If you have this in PvP, you'll basically win every time. But I remember when everyone had this in PvP, it was so easy to lose your armor that you'd been working for weeks. I remember I had a friend who donated to get a shortcut to get the armor really quickly, and then we went into like 2 PvP battles and he lost it instantly. So there's a lot of risk when playing PvP with these armors, especially when other people have the same gear. Now, believe it or not, red matter armor is not actually the best armor in the mod. You would think that dark matter and then red matter and then there's nothing else. But there's actually upgraded red matter, and this is called gem armor or gemstone armor. So you can see over here we have the gem helmet, we have the gem chestplate, the gem leggings, and the gem boots. Now each of these have a bonus. So you can see, for an example, they basically have very similar stats to the normal armor. Basically exactly the same stats, just a little bit better. Like, for an example, they have more knockback power and a little bit more armor. But they have a few custom abilities. So you can see if we hold specific keys, we can toggle the abilities. So if we hold Shift plus X, we can toggle special night vision if we have the gem helmet. And then we have the infernal armor, gravity greaves, and the gem boots. If we press X, we can toggle the step assist. So there's some interesting bonuses. Okay, now infernal armor, I'm not sure if that gives you fire resistance. I think it does. And gravity greaves, they might make you have slower fall. Like, you can see my jump is different. Even though I'm in creative mode, I'm currently not actually in creative flight mode. Okay, so you can see the gravity boots basically kind of lets you free float and fly, and then you can fall back down. So it basically negates any fall height that you're going to suffer from, so you don't really take any damage. So this is kind of like being in creative flight mode, but a little bit easier to control and also feels a lot better. And you can see I'm also walking super fast too, and if I run, I just run at insane speed. So gemstone armor is banned on most servers because it's really overpowered, but it is actually genuinely the best end game armor you can get. Now, if we set the time to nighttime, and then I hold shift and press X, I'll go into night vision mode. So this basically gives me endless night vision. It's like I drank a potion and then had the endless night vision buff or effect. So now I can see in the dark, and I can turn that off by pressing the same button. Also, if we press X, it should give us something called step assist. Now, for some reason this isn't activating because I think something else is bound to the X key. As you can see, the boots effects says X, but it's being used by something else in the game. So if I just unbind X from the other features of the game and then press X, now it says step assist enabled. So I think personally what this does is, as you can see, if I walk up to a block, it just makes me stop. But if I turn on step assist, it walks directly up the block for me without even having to jump. This is a really nice feature because we could just run forever and it'll just climb blocks automatically for me, which is really nice. This is kind of like the auto jump feature, but just less troublesome and causes less problems. Now, one of the coolest items in the game, and one of the special items you can get in Project E, is a special ring. Now, there's a few rings in the game which have various abilities to them, and one of them is the Archangel Smite ring, okay? Basically, if you have arrows in your inventory, in fact, I don't even think you need arrows. I'm not sure if you need arrows, I really can't remember, but we're just going to spawn arrows anyway. Basically, this is a special arrow ring that fires arrows at nearby mobs, and as you can see, the crafting recipe is dark matter with multiple bows and feathers, and also an iron band which we craft out of iron bars and a lava bucket. And basically, this is kind of like a bow that shoots at a rapid speed, so we can just fire arrows continuously with this thing. And it's a really nice weapon, and as you can see, some of the arrows are actually on fire, but the reason why this is different to a bow is I could shoot the arrow at the ground or in the air, and it will home in to whatever's nearby. So whatever mob is nearby to the arrow, providing you're quite close to it yourself, this will basically home in and just directly fire at the mob. So it's basically like an aimbot. So this is another item which is kind of overpowered if you use it in PvP, which is why it's also banned on most servers which have the ProjectE mod. There's also the body stone, okay? This basically cures your hunger, okay? As you can see, the body stone restores nearby players' hunger half a shank every 0.5 seconds. Now, I'm not sure if this uses player life points to give yourself satiated hunger, or if it just automatically generates over time, but this is another useful item in the mod that basically negates the need for you to actually eat food. Now, this is hard to get because you need red matter, sugar, and lapis lazuli, so this is really complex to craft, but it's another nice utility item. Another item is the catalytic lens, okay? So if we right click on this, it will basically cause a wormhole to open up in the ground, or basically just mine down tons of blocks, okay? Now this is crazy. This is absolutely insane. This is another item which is always banned off of Tekkit servers, because you can just grieve tons of the world by doing this. Like, we can mine multiple stories of blocks down, either horizontally in front of us or vertically straight down. It's a really nice item for actually carving out man-made ravines. As you can see, it's made a pretty impressive ravine right here. Now, items with such power in the mod don't come easy, because this requires dark matter, the destruction catalyst, which is another item, and the hyperkinetic lens, which is another item created out of diamonds, dark matter, and nova catalysts, which were basically TNT, and multiple other rare items in the mod, okay? And if you wonder what the destruction catalyst is, it's basically an item which does near enough the same thing, but on a smaller scale. Another utility set of items are the divining rods. These come in the low, medium, and high tiers, and they're crafted using covalence dust and a stick, and upgraded with higher tiers of covalence dust. Covalence dust is basically made out of vanilla ores in the game, and all these guys do is, if you right click on blocks, it shows you the average EMC of the blocks in that cluster, and obviously if you get a higher tier, you can see in a much larger radius around you. So the next item I want to show you is the Evertide Amulet, okay? So this is interesting as an item because not only when you right click can you create water, basically just create water just from thin air, which is kind of cool. It also means that it'll stop you drowning, and it basically turns you into Jesus by letting you walk on water. And my gemstone armor already makes me glide super fast, so this is basically turned me into the Flash, just using this combination of items. But it gives you Jesus mode to water walk, and it stops you from drowning, and we can just create our own water source blocks. So this is a really powerful item too. Now, We create this using multiple buckets of water and dark matter, and an interesting thing with this particular item itself is if we place down a dark matter pedestal, which I didn't really show you earlier, the reason why I want to show you this is it works in combination with the Evertide amulet, and we right click on the pedestal, it will actually start a special process, okay? Whilst it's on the pedestal, it actually gives the world a higher chance to rain, so you may actually witness that it may start raining in your world after a while of being on the pedestal. The next item is a really useful item for farming and probably one of the best utility features of the mod, which is slightly unknown and one that I didn't actually know about before. That's the Harvest Goddess band. So if we press G on this band, you can see we can activate it and turn it on, and you can see that it's mowing down all of these grass blocks here and dropping lots of seeds. Now you may be wondering, what's the point of this? This is pretty pointless, right? Well, what it's actually doing is it's automatically speeding up and accelerating the growth of all crops around us and automatically harvesting them. So it doesn't just work on grass blocks, it works on plants too, and it also works on sugarcane. So you can see it's basically harvesting sugarcane down to the first block, dropping the sugarcane, and then leaving it open to be replanted, and then it's automatically growing again. So it speeds up the growth cycle, harvests it, and gives us the crop from the harvest. So it gives us the crop yield. So this is a really nice item which just basically makes farming pretty pointless in the game because we can automate it. This doesn't come easily yet again, because we need multiple saplings, one of those iron bands, 2 poppy flowers and dark matter, so it's kind of tough to create, but it's probably one of the easiest out of all of the special items to craft. So I'm going to spawn these interdiction torches in a small archway, and I'm going to stand in the middle of the radius of where these torches are. Now these are interesting items, the interdiction torch, okay? So if I spawn a few skeletons around me, which are inevitably going to set on fire because it's currently technically daytime, and then I set it to nighttime, these guys are going to want to attack me, right? Well, let's just spawn a few close to me. Now when I spawn them, they get pushed away. You may be wondering, why are they getting pushed away? This is because I'm inside the interdiction torch radius. This pushes mobs away, and it also pushes projectiles away too. So if these guys shoot me with arrows with a bow, the arrows can say bye bye, they'll get teleported away too. So this is basically an easy way to make a mob free zone. So if you're worried about getting attacked at nighttime, just put some of these guys down and you're basically in your own safe zone. It's basically like if you've got a zombie apocalypse going on, this is how to create a real safe zone. You create these out of the Philosopher stone, diamonds, redstone torches, and glowstone dust. So it may be hard to make 4 to make a full radius, but it's definitely worth it. There's also the life stone in the mod. So I showed you the hunger stone before, but this restores both hunger and also hearts, and it gives you half a heart every 0.25 seconds, okay? And this works because we use the body stone, which I showed you before, along with the soul stone, which just heals, and the body stone, which just gives hunger. And it basically creates a super item where it does both. So this is basically like a passive item that heals you and also satiates you at the same time. There's also the Mercurial Eye, which transforms or places blocks using EMC, which you have. And you can change the mode by pressing G, which there's Creation Mode, Extension and Extension Classic, Transmutation and Transmutation Classic, and also Pillar modes. There's also items in the game called Klein Stars. So you have Klein Star Ein, Zwei, Drei, Wir, Sphere, and Omega. The first 4 being words in German, numerically, and obviously the last 2 being the best. So these basically have a ton of EMC, and they're basically everlasting fuel storages. So you can put those in a transmutation table, or, which is a lot better, you can put them in a condenser and they can endlessly duplicate items for you and use the stored EMC inside. Now, using red matter, lapis lazuli, and books, we can create this awesome item called the Mind Stone. So if you kill a lot of mobs and you have a lot of XP drops on the floor, this stone, when activated, sucks XP orbs into the Mind Stone, okay? So we can turn this thing on, and let's just go kill a few mobs, and just see if they drop us some EXP. And as you can see, the EXP, even if we're far away from the mobs, the EXP will actually basically teleport to us, okay? And it says here stored EXP. So then we could turn that off and right click on it, and now there's no stored EXP in it. So you can basically store EXP inside it and use it basically on demand. There's also the Ring of Arcana, which comes in 4 different colors. And as you can see, the crafting recipe is pretty complex. We use the Harvest Goddess Band, the Ignition Ring, which I didn't show you, but to put it simply, it's basically a ring which sets fire to all the blocks around you. The Zero Ring, which extinguishes things like fires and freezes things, and the Swift Wolf's Ring, which I'll show you momentarily, which is basically a flying ring. So we use all these rings combined with red matter to create a mega ring called the Ring of Arcana, okay? And if you right click on it, we can switch it to different modes based on all the rings we use to craft it. So we can use ignition mode, we can use harvest mode, so we can hold right click and harvest all the crops like we did before. We could put it on SWRG mode. SWRG mode is Swift Wolf's Rendingale mode, so that's where we can fly. And zero mode is basically that zero ring we covered before. And ignition is setting things on fire. So basically it's a super overpowered ring with multiple modes to it. And there's the soul stone. So this is how to craft it, and basically it gives you half a heart every 0.5 seconds, which I slightly covered a little bit earlier. Now I do want to show you the Swift Wolf's ring, because this is a really nice item which you can definitely work towards, especially if you're in survival and not creative mode. So you're going to need one of these iron bands, some feathers and dark matter, very similar to how we created arrow firing ring before. And we need to switch to survival mode just to show you how this works. So if we're in survival mode and we right click, this will actually give us flight mode, okay? And usually I believe there's a duration. So basically you can also shoot lightning at nearby mobs, and that activates every 3.5 seconds. But as you can see, it says EMC and then stored EMC 0. So I'm going to spawn one of those Klein stars that I told you about before, just because it's the easiest way of having stored EMC. And now, as you can see, the stored EMC is going down, but we have a lot longer flight duration time because we have tons of EMC from this Klein star. And basically the Swift Wolves lets you fly around the map. So we can just fly like creative mode, but using a special ring. The next item is the Watch of Flowing Time. So as you can see, we use glowstone, obsidian, a clock, and dark matter, and as you can see, this item's awesome. So you can control time in a way where you can turn night into day or day into night. And if you actually put this on a pedestal, like what we did with the water amulet to create rain, this actually makes nearby machines actually move a lot quicker. So your furnaces will tick quicker and machines will actually produce things quicker too. So this is basically an awesome buff that we can use. And you have to right click on the pedestal, okay? I didn't right click on the pedestal earlier to make it rain, but if we would have right clicked, it would have made it actually rain. So as you can see, we're going to take this off the pedestal for now, and we can right click on it and it says fast forward mode or rewind mode, or turn it off. And if we click G, we can turn it on and then go into the special mode, and you can see things move a little bit different. So using right click and G to activate it and change the modes, we can basically manipulate time. There's also the zero ring, which we covered a little bit earlier when I showed you that mega ring, and basically we craft it using snow cover pieces and snowballs with dark matter and an iron band, and basically this freezes surroundings and extinguishes them. So I've kind of already showed you this, but it basically turns you into Elsa from Frozen. Like, we can right click on the ground and create snow and these snow lilies, and basically do that wherever we want in the world, and if there's fire we can do the same just to extinguish it. So thanks for watching this video. That concludes the ProjectE Minecraft mod showcase, which is a recreation of the Equivilant Exchange 2 mod, one of my personal favorite magic mods from the past in the old days of Minecraft. If you want to download this mod, you can click on the link down in the description below. This mod supports 1.16.5. You can see that I am wearing netherite armor, so it is very up to date as a mod, and you can go all the way back to 1.15.2, 1.12.2 I believe, and many of the older versions. It's a really well kept mod that's always updated, and personally one of my favorite magic mods out there that speeds up the game a little bit and offers a lot of cool little utility items and perks. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.